The instant my wife Mara introduced me as just a friend at Claire's oversized suburban palace, I felt something in my chest go stiff and cold. 8 years of marriage, 1 refinance, 2 busted cars I'd kept alive with my own hands, and suddenly I was standing in a circle of strangers with a sweating beer bottle, wearing my best chinos and a button-down, while my wife waved her perfectly manicured hand in my direction like she was pointing out the caterer. "Oh, this is Ben," she said, the corners of her mouth barely moving. It was the smile she used for telemarketers and pushy salespeople at the mall. "He's a friend." A friend. The people around us did that little social micro-flinch people do when the script goes off. A couple of them tried to disguise it with sips of wine. One guy coughed into his glass. The woman next to Mara. Someone from her Pilates studio, I thought, gave me a quick searching look, like maybe she remembered seeing me at our anniversary barbecue last year. We were standing in the social lounge, as Claire called it on her Instagram. I called it the living room. Fake Roman pillars. Oversized crystal chandelier. Walls painted a shade of white that probably had a pretentious name like eggshell linen. The rug under my shoes cost more than my truck. I could feel my ears burning, but my voice, when it came, sounded calm. Cheerful, even. "Actually," I said, raising my beer slightly like I was making a toast, "I'm her ex-husband, as of right now." You could have killed the music and nobody would have noticed. The room was already dead quiet. The smooth jazz leaking out of the built-in speakers kept playing, but it suddenly sounded far away. Mara's face went through a whole rainbow in 3 seconds, white, pink, red, then that weird blotchy purple she got when she tried not to cry. The Pilates woman choked on her wine. Someone dropped a phone. It hit the hardwood with a loud, satisfying crack, and then Claire was moving forward. Claire Adams had been Mara's best friend since college, and the unofficial queen of this neighborhood's social ecosystem. She was the type who always looked like she'd just stepped out of a magazine shoot tasteful blonde highlights, expensive athleisure that somehow counted as casual, and a kind of unbothered confidence that came from marrying rich and opening a trendy wellness center for something to do. "Ben, sweetie," Claire said, her voice warm and firm, like a kindergarten teacher separating fighting kids. "Why don't we step outside and talk? Privately." Her eyes told a different story. There was a sharp glint there, an appraising look I'd never seen pointed at me before, something between curiosity and approval. I set my beer on her Italian coffee table, the one she told everyone about 3 times already tonight, next to a stack of design magazines. "No need," I said. I slid my wedding ring off my finger. It felt heavier than it looked. I placed it on top of the magazines. The soft metal made a tiny, clear clink against the glass. I think everybody here deserves to know what kind of person they're dealing with. That's when I saw him. He stepped out from behind the kitchen island like he'd been waiting for his cue. Ethan Cole, owner of the luxury auto dealership on the main road, the place that sold leased BMWs to people who needed everyone to know they were doing well, even when they weren't. Tall, tan, perfect teeth so white they practically glowed in the recessed lighting. He had 2 glasses of red wine in his hands, one of them held at just the right angle to be offered to someone. From the guilty look he shot Mara, it was pretty obvious who that someone was supposed to be. "Hey, Ben," he said with that oily, practiced charm I remembered from his commercials. "Good to see you, man." Man, buddy, pal, all the neutral words cheaters use when they've been sleeping with your wife. I'd met Ethan twice before. Once at a Chamber of Commerce thing my boss dragged me to, where Ethan spent 10 minutes explaining how I deserved to treat myself to a car I absolutely couldn't afford. And once at the supermarket, where he and Mara had been laughing together in the produce aisle, a little too close. I'd written it off as small-town coincidence. Stupid. "Ethan," I said, walking toward him with my hands in my pockets like nothing mattered. "Didn't know you and Claire were such good friends." "Oh, we're not," Claire said quickly, a little too quickly. "Ethan's here with, well—" Her eyes skittered between the three of us like she was watching a very tense tennis match. The crowd parted just enough for me to see Face's neighbours, Mara's yoga clients, people from the PTA. A loose ring of witnesses, all pretending they didn't want to see what happened next. "With my wife," I finished for her. "Right, Ethan?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ben, I think maybe there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," I said, "just overdue clarity." I turned back to Mara. She was frozen by the fireplace, that tall grey stone monstrosity Claire had installed for the vibe. Mara's lean Pilates-toned body looked rigid, like she could crack if she moved too fast. Her carefully done makeup couldn't hide the panic. "How long?" I asked. Her throat worked. "Ben, can we please not do this here?" "How long?" Claire cleared her throat. "Maybe everyone should just—" "6 months," Mara whispered. 6 months. Half a year of late classes at the studio. 6 months of her curling into my side on the couch after work, asking about my day. 6 months of talking about that beach vacation we were supposedly saving for. 6 months of my wife kissing me goodnight and then texting somebody else once I fell asleep. I looked around at the circle of faces. Some were shocked, some guilty. A few looked way too entertained. Mrs. Parker from 3 houses down looked devastated. She and her husband had been at our wedding. "Well," I said, my voice weirdly light, "that explains all the extra client workshops you've been running." There were a few strangled laughs. Everyone knew Mara's schedule. She taught 4 yoga classes a week and spent the rest of her time drinking iced coffee with friends and posting inspirational quotes. The idea of her working late had always been a joke. I was just the last one to get it. Claire stepped closer and laid a perfectly manicured hand on my forearm. It used to annoy me, the way she touched everyone all the time. Now the gesture felt different, careful, calculated. "Ben," she said softly, "why don't you come outside with me? Get some air." I almost shrugged her off. Then I caught the look in her eyes, sharp, focused, nothing like the breezy hostess she played at these things. She looked at me the way she looked at problem employees when she thought they weren't performing at her wellness center. Businesslike, deciding something. "Sure," I said, "let's go take a breath." As we walked toward the French doors, the party tried to remember how to be a party again. Conversation restarted in stilted bursts. Someone turned the music up a notch. Behind us, Ethan leaned toward Mara, whispering quickly. I didn't bother trying to hear. Claire's backyard was lit like a magazine spread. Stone patio. Professionally landscaped shrubs. A pool with soft blue lights glowing underneath the surface, making everything look cleaner than real life. She closed the doors behind us, cutting off the noise. The night air was cooler than I expected. I wondered if that was the air or just shock. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, and for the first time since I'd known her, it sounded real. "Are you?" I asked. "Yes," she said, "though probably not for the reasons you think." She glanced back through the glass at the scene inside. From out here, it looked like a TV show. People clustering in small groups, Mara and Ethan in a corner, the ring on Claire's coffee table glinting under the chandelier. "There are things you don't know, Ben," she said, "about Mara, about all of this." I let out something that might have been a laugh. "Clearly, I mean more than Ethan," she said. "He's not the first." The words hit me in the gut harder than her admission inside. I'd been bracing myself for one affair, one big betrayal. You can tell yourself a lot of stories about a single mistake, about stress, about a bad patch, about people being human. But not the first didn't leave much room for excuses. "What are you talking about?" I asked. Claire sighed, then dug into her small clutch bag. She pulled out her phone, unlocked it, scrolled, then handed it to me. On the screen was a photo of Mara sitting close to a guy I'd never seen before at some restaurant I didn't recognize. Her head was tipped back in laughter, his hand on her knee under the tablecloth. The timestamp in the corner showed a date 3 months ago. The same week she'd been at a mindfulness retreat with Claire. "Who is he?" My voice sounded distant to my own ears. "Name's Ryan Cho," Claire said. "Personal trainer at the downtown gym. They were seeing each other for a while. That picture was taken when she told you we were at that wellness conference in Chicago." I stared at the screen until the image blurred. I remembered that weekend. Mara had been thrilled about it, talked about workshops and networking and how it could be big for her brand. She'd come home with brochures and stories and a t-shirt from the hotel gift shop. "There are more," Claire said, taking the phone back gently. "I've been keeping track for months. Photos, times, places." "Why?" I asked. "Why keep track? Why now?" She pulled a small cream-coloured envelope from her bag and held it out to me. "Because at first I thought she'd stop. Then I thought you'd figure it out yourself. And then—" "And then?" I asked. "And then she started using me as her cover story," Claire said, her mouth twisting. "Telling people she was with me when she was really with them. Using my name, my studio, my events." The anger in her voice surprised me. "And because," she finished, "I've been where you are. My ex-husband thought networking was just code for sleeping with anything that laughed at his jokes. I know what it's like to be the last one to understand everyone's been laughing at you." She pressed the envelope into my hand. "My number's in there," she said, "and a USB drive and some notes. If you want to know the whole truth, open it. If you'd rather pretend this doesn't exist, throw it away. I won't say anything." "Why tell me at all?" I asked. "Because I watched you fix my broken garbage disposal last month," she said, "of all things. And you talked about Mara like she hung the moon. And then I listened to Mara at brunch last week talk about how she deserved an upgrade." She met my eyes, and there was nothing soft in her expression anymore. "You deserve better than to be the last one to know what kind of game you're in," she said. Inside, the party was already breaking apart. People were collecting coats, whispering urgently. Mara was nowhere in sight. Ethan stood by the kitchen island, staring at his phone like it might rescue him. I looked down at the envelope. It felt heavier than paper. "Ben," Claire said softer now, "I really am sorry." "I'm starting to believe you," I said. That night, after I left Claire's and drove home in a silence so thick it felt like fog, I didn't open the envelope. I put it on the kitchen table, next to the bowl where we kept the mail and spare keys, and sat there staring at it until the digital clock on the stove flipped past midnight. Mara didn't come home. I told myself it was because she was staying with Claire to cool off. I'm pretty sure I even believed it for a while. Shock is generous that way. It hands you temporary lies so you don't break too fast. Around 3 a.m, I finally picked up the envelope. Inside was a business card with Claire's cell number scribbled on the back, a folded sheet of paper, and a USB drive. The paper was filled with Claire's neat handwriting. Dates, times, places. March 10th, 7:45 p.m. Lumina Bistro with Ryan Cho. Told you, late class. I was home by 6. March 22nd, 6:30 p.m. Grandview Hotel Bar with older man, ID unknown. Told you, strategy meeting at my house. I was at my sister's. April 3rd, after hours, Cole Luxury Motors. Told you she was helping me interview instructors. The list went on, 2 pages of it, a logbook of adultery. At the bottom, Claire had written in slightly slanted letters, "The USB has photos, screenshots, and 1 audio file. I'm sorry you have to see any of this, but you need to know." My hands were shaking when I plugged the drive into my laptop. The photos folder held dozens of images. Mara at bars, restaurants, hotel lobbies. Different men. Sometimes Ethan, sometimes the trainer, sometimes someone else. Her body language with all of them was painfully familiar. Leaning in, touching their arms, that big laugh she used to save for me. The messages folder was worse. Screenshots of texts between Mara and various contacts saved under innocuous names. Yoga Girl, Client A, Ryan Jim, arranging meetups, complaining about me. Explicit things I couldn't force myself to read all the way through. But the audio folder was the one that cut the deepest. There was just one file, time-stamped 2 weeks ago. I clicked play. "Honestly, Claire," Mara's voice said, clear as if she were sitting in the next room, "I don't know how much longer I can do this. Ben is fine. He's fine. But he's so small. He comes home smelling like chlorine and metal, eats his leftovers in front of the TV, and falls asleep. I did not go to college and build my brand to spend my life as the wife of a guy who fixes pipes." I forgot to breathe for a second. Claire's recorded voice answered, cautious. "He's your husband, Mara." "Marriage is a contract," Mara said, "and contracts can be renegotiated. Ethan actually has ambition. He knows people. He's talking about opening a second location. I can't stay chained to a maintenance supervisor forever." I slammed the laptop closed. The screen went black, but the words didn't stop echoing. A guy who fixes pipes. My job at the water treatment facility wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. It paid the mortgage and the insurance and Mara's studio rent during the months she didn't quite break even. It kept this town's toilets flushing and their showers running. Apparently that translated to small and embarrassing in her head. My phone buzzed on the table. Claire. I stared at her name for a long moment, then answered. "Hey," I said. My voice sounded hoarse. "Did you listen?" she asked. "Yeah." "I'm sorry," she said again. "You knew she thought that about me?" I asked. I didn't even recognize my own tone. It wasn't angry, it wasn't sad, just tired. "I suspected," Claire said carefully. "Mara's been talking about outgrowing this life for a while. I didn't realize how brutal she was behind your back until I heard that recording. How'd you even get it?" "After my divorce, I started recording certain conversations when my gut told me to," she said. "Legal in this state, if one person knows. I thought I might need it someday. Not like this, though." I looked at the dark laptop screen. "What do I do?" I asked before I could stop myself. "That depends," she said, no hesitation. "Do you want to try to save your marriage or end it?" Once, not so long ago, that would have been an impossible question. We'd met in college. We'd been each other's first real love. We'd said vows and meant them. But now those memories felt like they belonged to someone else. "I don't think there's anything left worth rescuing," I said. "Then you need to protect yourself," Claire said, "legally, financially, emotionally, because Mara won't go quietly, and she will try to spin this." "What do you mean?" "She's already started," Claire said. "Last night, after you left, she told some people you've been controlling and jealous lately, that you have a temper, that she's been afraid of how you'll react when she asks for a divorce." I let out a bitter laugh. "I've never told her she couldn't do anything," I said. "I encouraged her to open that damn studio." "I know," Claire said, But facts aren't what matter in these circles. Stories are, and she's trying to make herself the victim before the truth gets out. We talked for another 20 minutes. She told me to document everything, to make copies of bank statements, to find a lawyer, to stay calm. After we hung up, my phone rang again. My brother's face filled the screen. "Hey," I said. "What the hell happened last night?" Nate asked without preamble. "Jenny from down the block texted Lucy this morning, said there was some kind of nuclear meltdown at Claire's." "Mara's been cheating," I said. Plural. "Jesus," he breathed. "You okay?" "Define okay." "Right," he said. "What are you going to do? Need me to come over? I can be there in 20. Nate had always been the fighter in the family. 2 years older. Construction foreman. The guy who'd gotten suspended in high school for punching a kid who made fun of me. "Not yet," I said. "I think this is something I have to plan, not punch." There was a pause. "That's the scariest thing I've ever heard you say," he admitted. "Call if you need backup." When he hung up, the house went quiet again. I looked around our kitchen, Mara's inspirational quote magnets on the fridge, her stack of health magazines on the counter, the fruit bowl with exactly one brown banana in it. My life looked the same as it had yesterday, but everything in it had shifted. Mara didn't come home that night either. By morning, numbness had settled into something sharper, not pure rage, something colder, focused. I called in sick for the first time in 3 years. My boss, Rich, sounded concerned. I told him it was family stuff. He said to take the time I needed. I believed him. For now. Then I made coffee, let it go cold without tasting it, and opened my laptop. If Mara wanted to play with my life like it was a board game, I wasn't going to keep standing there as her pawn. I started with the bank accounts. Our joint checking showed a series of cash withdrawals over the last 6 months that didn't line up with anything I remembered. Restaurants charges I'd never heard of. Hotel charges I'd definitely never heard of. The studio account technically hers, but I'd been the one who helped set it up. Showed transfers to friends that looked suspiciously like reimbursed dates. Then I went digital hunting. Mara wasn't half as careful as she thought. I found her iCloud backups, her calendar, old emails, a hidden folder on her laptop with photos that made my chest tighten and my jaw clench. And buried at the back of her dresser, in a shoebox under some ratty scarves, I found a second phone. An older iPhone she'd once told me didn't work anymore. The battery was dead, but when I plugged it in, it booted right up. No passcode. Inside was a history of months of conversations. Some mirrored what I'd already seen. Others were new. The tone in them was different, less careful. Like she thought of this phone as the real one, the one where she didn't have to hide. The messages between her and Ethan were particularly illuminating. They weren't just flirting and scheduling hookups. They were planning, lawyers, splitting assets, how to frame things so I'd look unstable, whether she could get alimony, and threaded through the practical stuff were her frustrations. "You keep saying you'll talk to Jen, but you never do. I can't stay in this house with Ben forever. I've already started moving money around. If I back out now, I'll look crazy. Worst case, I get half and start over with or without you. I'm not going back to maintenance guy paychecks for the rest of my life." The last few messages told a slightly different story, though. Ethan was pulling back. "I just need more time. The kids are in a tough spot right now. Things are complicated." Reading between the lines, it was obvious. Mara had jumped. Ethan was still standing on the ledge. That was when the idea started to form. Small at first, then bigger. Mara had spent months making me into the village idiot, using my trust as cover, using our marriage as camouflage while she lined up her exit. If she wanted a new life so badly, Maybe I could help her get there, just not the way she imagined. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Ben, this is Ethan. We should talk. Can you come by my office this afternoon? Alone. I stared at the text. Part of me wanted to throw my phone across the room. Another part of me was curious. Sure, I typed. What time? 3 p.m. And Ben, let's keep this between us, okay? Of course, I thought. The showroom at Cole Luxury Motors was exactly what you'd expect from a man like Ethan. Shiny marble floors, glass walls, the smell of leather and money, soft classical music playing from somewhere invisible. His office was tucked behind the showroom, but still had a big glass window so he could oversee his kingdom. Dark wood, framed awards, photos of him with local politicians, handing over car keys like a benevolent prince. He stood when I walked in, smoothing his tie like he was about to pitch me a lease. Ben, he said, forcing on that smile. Thanks for coming. Have a seat. Coffee? Water? I'm good, I said, lowering myself into the leather chair opposite his desk. It squeaked under my weight. He sat, then immediately started fidgeting with a pen. So, he said, about the other night? What about it? I asked. I think emotions were running high, he said, and maybe some assumptions were made. Maybe things looked a certain way that isn't exactly what's going on. I had to give it to him. If there was a way to gaslight someone about catching you mid-affair, he'd probably been trained in it during some corporate sales seminar. Such as? I asked. Well, Mara and I are friends, he said. Good friends, and yes, maybe lines got a little blurred, but it's not like what you're probably thinking. She told you she's leaving me? I asked. He blinked. What? She's been sleeping with you for half a year, I said. She told you she was planning to divorce me and upgrade her life. He stared at me. She said that? He asked, voice a little higher than before. Oh, that and more, I said, pulling out my phone. You want to hear what she really thinks of you? His fingers tightened around the pen. Ben, I don't know what you've seen. I opened one of the screenshots from the backup phone and slid the screen toward him. Here's what Mara had texted Ethan 3 weeks ago. You're sweet, but sometimes I feel like I'm babysitting a man who thinks leasing cars is a personality. I'm not blowing up my life to be Mrs. Used BMW. I watched the colour drain from his face. That's fake, he said, but there was no conviction behind it. There are more, I said, flicking to another. Ethan keeps saying he'll leave her when the kids are older. I'm not putting everything on hold for someone who can't grow a spine. And another. Honestly, if the dealership starts tanking, I'll just cut my losses. I'm not attaching myself to a sinking ship. His shoulders sagged. How many others? He asked quietly. At least 3 more guys before you, I said, and another one overlapping with you. He stared at his desk. The pen in his hand snapped in two without him seeming to notice. I thought, he began, then stopped. What did you think? I asked. That she was unhappy, he said, that you took her for granted, that I was rescuing her. I snorted. From what? Folding laundry? Having to drive a 10-year-old Honda instead of a new lease? He flinched, but I was past caring. What do you want from me? I asked. Why did you ask me here? He drew a breath, trying to steady himself. Look, he said, we both made mistakes here, but there's no need to drag everybody through the mud. You, me, Mara, my wife, your reputation, my business. We can handle this quietly, like adults. I'm listening, I said. You and Mara work out your stuff, he said. Whatever you need to do, counselling, separation, whatever. I'll step back. No more contact, no drama. This doesn't have to define anyone's future. So you want me to pretend none of this happened? I said. I want us to avoid a situation where everyone loses, he said. You seem like a reasonable guy. You've got a stable job, a nice home. Mara obviously cared about you at some point. Why blow everything up? Because she already lit the fuse, I said. You just brought extra gasoline. He pressed his lips together. Are you going to tell Jen? He asked. My wife? I thought about Jennifer Cole, soft-spoken, kind, the one who'd brought cookies when my mum died. The same woman Ethan had been erasing in his head while he made big plans with my wife. I don't know yet, I said. It's not really up to you, though, is it? Ben, please, he said, dropping the confident tone. If she finds out, it'll destroy her. The kids, she doesn't deserve this. No, I said, she doesn't. There was a long silence. Look, he said finally, voice low. Whatever you want. Money, help, I can... I stood up. I don't need your money, Ethan, I said, and I definitely don't need your help. He stood too, panic flickering across his face. Ben! Here's some advice, free of charge, I said. Whatever story Mara told you, whatever she said about our marriage, about her feelings, about your grand future together, it was all just another pitch. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can start scraping your life off the floor. I left him there with his broken pen and his glass office and his carefully constructed world starting to wobble. On my way out, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Claire. How'd it go with Ethan? Interesting, I replied. He's not as smart as he thinks he is. None of them are, she wrote back. You free tonight? We should talk about next steps. Maybe make sure Mara doesn't get to write the story herself. Next steps. The phrase hung there, heavy. What did you have in mind? I typed. Meet me at Mason's bar at 8. We'll strategize. Mason's was the kind of place I felt comfortable in. Dim, scarred wooden tables, beer specials written in chalk, fried food smell baked into the walls. The kind of place Claire would normally avoid like it was contagious. Which, as she said when I walked in and found her in a corner booth, was exactly the point. If we met at the country club, half the town would know before dessert, she said, taking a sip of something clear and expensive looking. Here, no one who cares will ever hear a word. The bartender nodded at me, already grabbing a pint glass. Usual? He asked. Yeah, I said. Thanks. After he left, I looked at Claire. You said next steps, I said. Sounds like you've been thinking. I have, she said. She reached down, picked up a manila folder from beside her seat, and slid it across the table. I did some homework today. Inside were printouts, Ethan's business records, news articles, social media screenshots, a basic background on Ryan the trainer, notes about another man Mara had been seeing, an older client from her studio whose wife sat on 3 local charity boards. How did you get all this? I asked. She gave a small, humourless smile. I run a wellness brand, she said. I'm in the business of knowing who people really are when the yoga mats are rolled up. Why? I asked. Why dig all this up? Because Mara isn't the only one who should be held accountable, Claire said. These men aren't helpless victims. They knew she was married. They chose this. But you said you knew what it was like to be cheated on, I said. Why not just focus on her? Because the last time someone blew up my life, she said quietly, everyone around him shrugged and said, well, that's just how men are. The woman he cheated with got called names. I got pity. He got sympathy. Her eyes met mine, steady. I'm done watching cheaters walk away with their lives intact while everybody else picks up the pieces. I took a sip of my beer, thinking, what exactly are you proposing? I asked. Consequences, she said simply. Real ones, for Mara, for Ethan, for the trainer, for every man who thought your marriage was just an inconvenience. And what does that look like? We don't lie, she said. We don't fabricate. We just shine light on what's already there. She ticked it off on her fingers. Jennifer deserves to know what her husband's been doing, she said. Mara's clients deserve to know that the woman giving them relationship advice and selling them integrity merch has been cheating on her husband with multiple men. Ryan's gym, she continued, markets itself as family values. I doubt they'd love knowing one of their trainers is using his job to pick up married women. This sounds like revenge, I said. Claire shrugged. Maybe it is, she said. Or maybe it's what should have happened a long time ago in half the stories in this town. People like Mara play these games because they're sure nobody will ever call them on it. I stared down at my hands. If I go along with this, I said slowly, I'm not the same person anymore. You already aren't, Claire said softly. That night at my party changed you whether you fight back or sit quietly and let her burn you down. The bartender set my beer down. I wrapped my fingers around the cold glass. What do you need from me? I asked. Claire slid another folder across the table. This one was thinner. Access, she said. You're still technically her husband. You can get into accounts I can't. Bank records, phone records, anything that shows a pattern. I already found a lot, I said. Old phone, messages, financial stuff. Her eyebrows rose. Then we're ahead of schedule, she said. We compile everything. We put it in order. We make sure that when Mara tries to paint herself as the poor oppressed wife of the pipe fixer, we've got receipts. And then? I asked. And then, she said, we decide where to send them. The next few days I lived a double life. To the neighbours, I was the quiet guy taking a few days off work to handle family issues. Inside my house, I was an archivist of betrayal. Every statement, every transaction, every photo from the backup phone. I organised them into folders, then subfolders. Financial infidelity, emotional infidelity, physical proof. The more I found, the less room there was for nostalgia. Mara hadn't just been cheating, she'd been methodically siphoning money from our accounts to fund it. Fancy restaurants, hotel rooms, gifts, Ubers, drinks. Our future house fund was 15,000 lighter than it should have been. All the while, she'd been nagging me about not saving enough. By the end of the week, I had a binder. Literal, physical binder. Claire and I met at Mason's again. She flipped through it slowly, nodding, occasionally whistling under her breath. Damn, she said finally. She really went all in. Apparently marriage really is just a contract, I said, and she's been renegotiating behind my back. Ready for phase 1? She asked. What's phase 1? Tell Ethan's wife, she said, before Ethan and Mara get the chance to poison the well. I pictured Jennifer's face, the time she'd helped Mara organise that charity yoga class, the kindness in her eyes. She doesn't deserve this, I said. She deserves the truth, Claire countered. What she does with it is her business, but she should at least know what her life is built on. In the end, that was what decided it. The next morning I drove to Lincoln Elementary, where Jennifer taught third graders. I waited until the parents' drop-off rush was over, then went inside and asked the secretary if I could speak with her. She appeared a minute later in the hallway, smiling in the automatic way teachers do when they expect a parent conference. Hi, she said. I'm sorry, have we met? I'm Ben Harper, I said, Mara's husband. The smile faltered. Oh, she said, is everything okay? Not really, I said. Do you have a minute? Somewhere private? She led me into her classroom. The bulletin boards were covered in construction paper projects. There were tiny desks everywhere. The smell of crayons and disinfectant cleaner hit me as the door closed. What's going on? She asked, folding her hands. I set the smaller folder I'd brought on her desk. I'm really sorry to bring this here, I said, but I didn't know another way to do it. Your husband and my wife have been having an affair for at least 6 months, maybe more. Her face went blank. That's not funny, she said, voice thin. I'm not joking, I said. I wish I was. I opened the folder and slid a few pages toward her. Text message screenshots, a couple of photos. The careful log Claire and I had compiled, dates matching up with times Mara had told me she was with Claire, and Ethan had told Jennifer he was working late. Jennifer read silently. Her eyes moved faster and faster. Her hand went up to her mouth. The colour drained from her face. How long have you known? She whispered. Since last weekend, I said. I didn't want to come to you with just suspicions. I wanted proof. Why are you telling me? She asked, looking up with eyes that were already red. Why not just deal with it with them? Because they were making plans, I said. Plans that involved leaving both of us blindsided and broke. I figured you deserved a head start. She stared at the papers again, then closed the folder carefully like it might explode. Okay, she said. Thank you for telling me. I need to make some calls. I'm sorry, I said again, because it was the only thing that felt remotely true. As I walked back through the hallway full of bright student artwork, my phone vibrated. Claire. How'd it go? She knows, I typed. Good, Claire responded. That'll light one match ready to light the others. Phase 2 happened faster than I expected. Claire accidentally sent an email from the studio mailing list to a much larger group than usual. In it were screenshots of Mara's texts carefully redacted for explicit content, fully unredacted, where she mocked clients behind their backs and bragged about sleeping with married men. Someone leaked it beyond the studio. Screenshots started bouncing through group chats. Within a day, half the town had seen at least one of them. Meanwhile, I stopped covering for her. When Mara's mum called to ask why she hadn't been answering her phone, I told her. When our mutual friends texted me confusing, vague messages about hearing something happened, I told them what. I didn't embellish. I didn't rant. I just answered questions with facts. And I changed the locks. Mara had been staying at a friend's place since the party. She hadn't texted or called me once. I figured she was hunkering down, letting me cool off. So when she pulled into our driveway 3 days after I talked to Jennifer, she probably expected things to be where she left them. I was sitting on the front steps with a beer when her car stopped. She got out, wearing leggings and a long cardigan, sunglasses covering half her face even though the sun was going down. She went to the front door, keyed in the code, and frowned when the lock beeped red. She tried again. Nothing. Ben? She called, turning. Code's changed, I said. Her jaw tightened. You can't just change the locks, she said. This is my house too. Actually, I said, taking a sip of beer, technically it's not. What are you talking about? She snapped. The deed, I said. Remember when you insisted it be in my name only, in case something happened, and you didn't want to be on the hook for the mortgage? Funny how that works out. You're being ridiculous, she said, walking over. Let me in the house, Ben. No, I said. She stared at me like I'd spoken another language. Where are my things? She demanded. In the garage, I said. I boxed everything up. You went through my stuff? Her voice went shrill. Relax, I said. I didn't read your journals or try on your leggings. Just packed your clothes and your studio junk. You can't do this, she said again, but there was a tremor now. I'll get a lawyer. You should, I said. I already talked to one. That gave her pause. Her phone buzzed. She glanced down at the screen and swore under her breath. What now? I asked mildly. I just lost 3 major clients, she said. They all cancelled within the last hour. Said they need to reevaluate our values alignment. Huh, I said. Wonder what changed. Her eyes narrowed. You did this, she said. Partly, I said. You did most of it yourself. I just stopped holding the curtain closed. She moved closer, lowering her voice. Ben, listen, she said, and I almost laughed because it sounded like Ethan earlier. I know you're hurt, I know you're angry, but destroying my business, that's too far. You stole from our joint accounts to pay for your dates, I said. You lied every single day for months. You were planning to take half of everything I've worked for and walk away like the injured party. Forgive me if my sympathy for your brand is limited. She flinched. You ruined Ethan's life, she said. Do you know his wife showed up at the dealership? In front of everybody? Good, I said. Maybe now he'll think twice before sleeping with a married woman. You're not this person, she whispered. The Ben I married wouldn't do this. The Ben you married, I said, believed you when you said, for better or worse. That Ben died on Claire's imported rug last weekend. She sank onto the porch step, like her knees had given out. What am I supposed to do? She asked. Where am I supposed to go? A month ago, that question would have gutted me. Now it barely scratched the surface. I don't know, I said. Maybe Ethan will let you crash at his place until his wife kicks him out. Oh, wait. Her eyes flashed. You're enjoying this, she said. No, I said honestly. I'm just not stepping in front of the bullet you fired at yourself. She stared at me for a long moment, then her shoulders slumped. Please, she said quietly. Ben, can we talk? Really talk? Maybe see a counselor? I know I messed up, but we can fix this. No, I said. We can't. Why not? She asked, desperation creeping in. Because I can't unknow what I know, I said. I can't unhear you talking about me like I'm something you scraped off your shoe. I can't unknow that you didn't just screw up once, you built a whole side life on my blind trust. She was crying now, mascara smudging under her sunglasses. I'll change, she said. I swear. I'll cut them all off. Mara, I said softly. You already changed. I just finally noticed. I stood up. Your stuff's in the garage, I said. You've got until tomorrow night to get it out. After that, I'll have it moved into storage and the bill will go to our lawyer. She looked up at me, stunned. You're really doing this, she said. I am, I said, and for what it's worth, thanks. Thanks, she repeated bitterly. For what? For reminding me that loyalty is wasted on someone who doesn't know what it is. I went inside and closed the door. Through the window, I watched her make call after call. Judging from the way her shoulders tensed with each one, she wasn't getting the answers she wanted. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when screenshots are involved. The fallout over the next few weeks was everything Claire promised and more. Jennifer filed for divorce and moved into her sister's house with the kids. The story at the dealership was that Ethan was taking a leave of absence to focus on family, but everyone knew why sales had tanked. People who'd smiled at him for years drove past his gleaming showroom and bought used cars from Nate's buddy's lot instead. Ryan got fired from the gym after someone no one could prove who sent the owner a packet of screenshots and photos. A few married women cancelled their memberships. The gym slapped a code of conduct on its website and posted a long, uncomfortable letter about community standards. Mara's studio bled clients. Some left quietly. Others messaged her publicly about deception and misaligned values. 2 instructors quit. One of them opened her own small studio across town and instantly had a wait list. Within 3 weeks, Mara closed one of her locations. A month later, she was trying to sell the whole business. Every time I met Claire at Mason's, she had new updates. Ryan's trying to get work in the city, she said one night, stirring her drink. He applied to 2 gyms that both called our place for references. Tricia told them the truth. Good, I said. Ethan had to sell his boat, she said another night. Jennifer's going aggressively after the house and a share of the dealership. Her lawyer is a shark. Good, I said again, though this time it tasted a little different. And Mara? I asked. Staying with some cousin, Claire said. She came by my studio yesterday, wanted to clarify some misunderstandings. What did you say? I told her I was done covering for her, Claire said. She called me a traitor. I called her a narcissist. We're probably not doing brunch again. We clinked glasses. To consequences, she said. To consequences, I echoed. The town had started calling the whole mess the Harper Cole saga. People I barely knew nodded at me in grocery aisles, gave me sympathetic looks at the gas station, slipped me notes with phone numbers on them when Claire wasn't looking. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, late at night, in the quiet house that was finally mine alone, something else started creeping in. Guilt. Not the guilt that told me I'd been wronged. That part stayed rock solid. I hadn't cheated. I hadn't lied. I hadn't drained accounts. But there was another kind. A recognition that in my rush to burn down Mara's false life, I'd scorched a lot of ground around it. Kids were going to grow up in split homes because of this. Small businesses were failing. People who'd had no idea what their spouses were doing were left standing in the smoking crater of my revenge. One evening at Mason's, a few weeks after the house lockout scene, I asked Claire, "Do you ever feel bad about what we did?" She looked at me over her glass for a long moment. "Sometimes," she said, "usually late at night, usually after my second gin and tonic. That's when I think about Jennifer's kids, about the women who liked Ryan because he made them feel strong and didn't know he was a predator." "And then?" I asked. "And then I remember standing at a party in my own house," she said, "listening to my husband tell another woman he felt trapped by me. I remember people knowing before I did. I remember everyone who shrugged and said, 'That's just life.'" She shrugged. "I decided a long time ago I'd rather be the person who acted than the person who just took it," she said. "What if we went too far?" I asked. She tilted her head. "Would you have preferred the version of this story where Mara drains your accounts, files first, tells everyone you're abusive, and walks away with half your pension while whispering that you drove her into Ethan's arms?" she asked. "No," I admitted. "Then we didn't go too far," she said. "We went far enough." My phone buzzed on the table. Unknown number. I frowned and picked it up. "Ben, it's Mara. I need to see you. One conversation. Please." I showed the text to Claire. "You're going to meet her," she said. "I don't see the point," I said. "The point," Claire said, "is that Mara's not the type to go quietly. If she's reaching out, she's planning something. Better to know what it is than be surprised in court." So against my better judgment, I texted Mara back. "Fine." "Where?" She suggested a coffee shop on the far side of town. Neutral ground. When I walked in, she was already there, in a corner booth. No makeup this time. Hair pulled back in a messy knot. She looked smaller. Not physically. She'd always been thin, but like someone had let the air out of her. "Thanks for coming," she said as I slid into the seat opposite her. "What do you want, Mara?" I asked. She wrapped both hands around her mug like she needed the warmth. "I wanted to look at you one more time before I go," she said. "Go where?" "Phoenix," she said. "My sister has a spare room. There's